Hi, everybody.
Hi,
We're live.
we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to Initiation into Mystery, our 15-part journey into the mysteries of the Rosary. We're on part 9 tonight, um, and we will be looking at the carrying of the cross. Overall, this entire 15-part journey, we're talking about how you can play with the mysteries in your own life, how they're a story that invites you to tell your story. And if you really want to see that in action, I have to say, come to a Way of the Rose meeting, because you will hear people do things with the mysteries like you've never seen before. Uh, on Tuesday, we had a meeting where everybody took one of the mysteries. We did a full rosary, all 15 mysteries. I've been praying the mysteries for over 20 years, and there were so many revelations that day, I can't tell you. Things I'd never seen in them. They were just astounding. So there are bottomless wells of inspiration, guidance, ecological truth, the story of the soul through deep time, and they're not a Christian dogma delivery system. That's the important thing to remember. Okay, that said, we're one of the most Christian of the mysteries.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the carrying of the cross is one of those mysteries that expands sort of laterally throughout all four Gospels, and there are a lot of details in this mystery. So many details, in fact, that a very popular Christian devotion to honor the stations of the cross, 14 stations of the cross, is has developed out of it. All the different things that happen, the different things that are said,
Every
people,
gesture on this.
everyone that Jesus meets along the way, carrying the cross on the way to Golgotha.
And as one of the Via Dolorosa is the sorrowful way of Calvary, the walk of Calvary, the metaphors in our language about carrying your cross. These are metaphors we need to take a really good look at, because they come with a lot of baggage.
And there are a lot of things that, the average person doesn't know. Like, for instance, Jesus stops carrying the cross at one point. He's carried for him.
Well, let's tell the story, because it's a three-part way we always look at every mystery.
Yeah.
The first part is to just look at the facts of the story, then to look at kind of the meta-narrative and symbiology of the story of what's going on, and then we start to play with it and open it up.
Yeah.
So, Clark, will tell you, do you want to tell the story, or shall I?
No, you can tell it.
Okay.
I'll jump in.
Great. Okay, here we go. So, Jesus has been sentenced to die, and he has been beaten, he has been mocked, and now he has to carry the means of his execution, this big, heavy wooden cross, on his back on the way to Golgotha, this hill where people are executed and crucified. So it's kind of a final torture, a final humiliation. He would be walking through the streets being jeered at, humiliated, and also it's a physical torture. It's very heavy. The scourging has been done to weaken him and almost kill him. He has a crown of thorns on his head. Certainly those who delve into the pornography of the execution love this mystery for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it has been really manipulated and misused. So a number of things happen. He trips 3 times. There are the onlookers in the crowd include his mother and Mary Magdalene, and a third female figure who's entirely legendary, who is Veronica, who offers him a cloth to wipe his face.
Right.
She doesn't exist in the Gospels. That's completely
well. I wouldn't even say that she's legendary. I'd say that she's part of the folk tradition, part of the oral tradition. So she may very well have been.
So we have 3 women there watching this experience. The disciples have fled. They vanished. They're not there, and it's in the midst of this horrific unfolding scene, we have the 3 women he loves bearing witness to him.
And we have other women as well, the daughters of Jerusalem. There is, it's almost like something out of Greek tragedy. There are people who come out, women mostly, to mourn him, right? To mourn his passing and to mourn his loss. You have to remember that he has originally entered into the city to great acclaim, to great celebration. He was welcomed by the ordinary people.
And then there's this moment when he trips and falls and he just can't get up. And he just can't do it. He can't carry his cross. And so the Roman soldiers enlist an onlooker. And to me, this is the heart of this mystery. There's this guy who's come to gawk. We don't know why. We don't know if he's sympathetic to Jesus, if he's sympathetic to the Romans.
Told.
We don't, if he's just there for the spectacle. And he is enlisted by the Romans to carry the cross for Jesus the rest of the way to Golgotha.
Yeah.
And his name is Simon.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very loaded moment.
Yeah.
So, when we talk about carrying the cross, whose cross are we carrying? What is the cross? Who's making us carry it? Does it have to be carried at all? Should it be carried? There are a lot of questions.
There are a lot of,
here.
I mean, one of the, as Pradita mentioned, one of the popular expressions that comes from this particular mystery is, shouldering your cross, or my cross to bear, or carrying a burden, right? And so this comes from, this episode, this part of the story. And in the narrative of Jesus, the cross is obviously a burden. He's being forced to carry the means of his own execution.
It's like carrying a guillotine.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's almost more than that too. I mean, we oftentimes talk about the ecological meaning of these mysteries, and if we look, as we've said before, at the span of time that the Sorrowful Mysteries cover, it's just one day, right? And if you look at the Joyful Mysteries, they're 12 years. And if you look at the later mysteries, they're 12 or 13 years, right? The Glorious Mysteries. And so, but time is suddenly telescoped in. And when we interpret this in terms of deep time, we look at it ecologically, it represents basically a period we're living through now, which is called the Anthropocene, right? The age of human beings, the age of anthropos, of man. And this is when we dominate the earth, when we seize the reins of the world.
We create cities.
Right. We create cities, we create inequity, we create starvation, we create all kinds of slavery.
I was so struck in the news today. There were two separate articles. One was in National Geographic, one was elsewhere. One was about Ireland, one was about France. And they were both about how the arrival of agriculture in these places completely instituted hierarchical cultures and all kinds of social class inequities.
Right.
All these things are instituted by empire.
Right.
And we have this moment when, sometimes I've talked about the scourging at the pillar. There's Jesus in the garden. There's still a sense that we're in the garden.
Right.
We haven't quite screwed up yet.
Right.
Then we're doing agriculture. We're plowing the fields. We're whipping the animals. We're domesticating the nature. And we're taking the reins of the universe in our hands. And the next thing we know, we're creating these hierarchies of kingships and that are crowns of thorns that hurt us.
Right, that hurt us. And we force upon one another's heads, right? We are maintaining this unjust, hierarchical, power-driven system that we've inherited from our ancestors, and we, have a hard time imagining how we could live in any other way.
And then we get to this march to the execution, the road to Calvary, the carrying of the cross, this mystery. And the thing it reminds me of the most is this metaphor that John Holdren, who was Obama's climate change advisor, once used. And he said, famously, human beings are in a car, in the fog, on a road, headed over a cliff.
Bad brakes.
With bad brakes. With bad brakes, headed over a cliff.
He said, we're in a car with bad brakes, driving through a fog and headed towards the cliff. We know the cliff is out there. We just don't know exactly where it is.
And our brakes are no good. Except, the real question he never asked, the bad brakes are our inability to do anything about climate change. The cliff is climate collapse. The fog is our refusal to know exactly what's going to happen. But the big question is, when did we get in the car?
Yeah. And
why are we on a road going over a cliff?
Right. The only real question is, how do we end up on a road going over a cliff? Right. And that's the question that Holder never asked, Obama never asked. Nobody in that administration ever really dealt with, or in any administration, in any government around the world. This was the question that was never being asked.
We have created a way of life that is leading to our crucifixion.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to get out of it.
You don't
We're
know how to get
stuck.
off of that road.
We don't know how to get off that road. We don't know how to get out from under that cross.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we fall, someone else gets forced to carry it.
Right.
And it is...
The show must go on. I mean, that is the...
How do we get the economy up and running again?
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
We cannot seem to stop this march to our own destruction.
Right.
And it's a terrible moment. And the thing is, we're all implicated in it. Nobody is unimplicated.
And so the road to Calvary is a road that we've been on for a very, very long time as a species. But, you know, you don't really notice what a mistake it is until you get close to the cliff, right? When we replaced, I think Perdita talked about this last week or the week before, when we replaced horse-drawn carts, right, and carriages with automobiles, we thought that was a great advance. Nobody could imagine that automobiles would trigger a climate catastrophe.
This is the detail I love. There was so much manure in the cities, and they didn't know how to, because there were so many horses. That's how you got around this manure problem. Yeah. Cars were the solution to the manure problem.
I know, and up until the moment the cars took over, the horses were there, and there were more of them right before cars became popular. The year before, everyone started to buy the Model A, I think was the first car. There were more horses in the cities of the world than at any point in history.
But then we get stuck with cars and look at where we are.
Overnight it changed.
Our every solution compounds the problem and makes it worse. And that's the cross we live under. And that cross is a dead tree. And instead of living under the tree of life, and the tree of life is a literal tree. Yeah. People used to be able to live under trees and get most of their nutrition. There were trees, the great chestnut trees of America.
American chestnuts.
I am very attached to them. They were called the redwoods of the East Coast. They experienced a horrific species-wide collapse at the last century.
Those of you who've read the Overstory know that the first section of that book is about a lone surviving American chestnut.
But these trees, for people who lived with them, one tree could supply your chestnuts, which is vitamin C, protein, and fat. Okay, and I love chestnuts. Roasted chestnuts are the best food ever. Flour, yummy, terrific. It's a delicacy these days. Then the wild animals came to eat the chestnuts, and that got your protein. The bark was medicinal. The trees were enormous, and they dropped branches so you could get your firewood. These trees were completely generous with their bodies. Right. The tree of life isn't a metaphor, it's a reality. Yeah. And what we do to the trees is we decimate the forest. Right. And it's this dead tree that has become our burden that we live under.
You know, Penny Harrison just wrote, I am so conflicted because I know this is true, but is there a way to advance without sacrificing so much? You know, one of the early things that Our Lady said, that first year, we were vacationing on Cape Cod, and she woke me up and said, if you rise to say the rosary tonight, a column of saints will support your prayer. And then she woke me every other night of that vacation on Cape Cod. And I don't remember the other thing she said, but the thing she said the night before we left was, it is all right to destroy the things you seem to love, but secretly hate. In fact, it may be necessary to do so.
And that is the final message of her 9-day novena.
Yeah.
The final 9-day novena is that and I would just like to take a word, and I'm going to come to your question too, Kate, Penny, about is there a way to advance? No. There's a way to retreat. There's a way to stop. I mean, the message of this time of this quarantine has been, please stop. Just stop for a moment. And this fantasy, we live inside of a mythology of progress. Yeah. Progress at all costs. Yeah. We're not just getting bigger, we're getting better each and every day. And it's a complete lie. Because the whole planet is collapsing around us.
We live inside of linear notions, and we take our bearing off those linear notions.
Masculine, patriarchal notions of achievement.
But a linear notion is basically a road going off a cliff, and a road you can't imagine getting off of because you're committed to this idea of a straight line. Our forebears, especially our very ancient forebears, people of the Upper Paleolithic, they didn't live in lines; they lived in circles, and their understanding of time was a circular time. Now, I don't think it would be entirely fair to say that they were committed to stasis, right? That their lives were boring. I don't think they were, but I do think that they celebrated something that maybe circle is the right, maybe spiral. They had the sense of passing through time, like atop their ancestors. Like I think they probably did have the sense that they were on a journey that was going somewhere that was longer than just this one lifetime.
And it's really, we have lost. We think one life is all there is, and we measure progress and advancement and all these things in terms of one life to live.
Yeah.
We don't see ourselves as part of the fabric of existence.
Right.
We do not experience the long story of our soul. The sobriety, sometimes I ask about this mystery, and I see all the questions, and I'm going to come to them. And sometimes I ask, I want to yell. The word that comes to my mind as a mother is stop. Stop this nonsense. This is a wonderful, wonderful man. Put down your damn spears. Stop. I'm getting in the road, and just stop. I want to say stop the whole fantasy of the way we live. And that's what I want to stop is empire. And we see this right now, like, oh, we're beginning to realize our police were created to reinforce inequality. And they're not about keeping people safer. They're about keeping inequality in place. We're seeing all kinds, but do we want to look at our world as it really is? And I think that's what the Sorrowful Mysteries demand that we do. They demand that we not look away. Mary is there, Jesus' mother. Mary is there, his lover, and they don't look away. They bear witness to what's going on. I've heard some people say, I don't want to pray the Sorrowful Mysteries.
Right. Yeah.
Our Lady says, you better pray the Sorrowful Mysteries.
You have to pray your way through them. Yeah.
If you can't, you don't get to glory if you don't pray the Sorrowful Mysteries and really look at the world we're living in.
Right.
And really, sobriety comes from taking in the big picture of deep time.
Now, relative to this, Maureen O'Donnell asked a really interesting question.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to Kate's question, too.
Okay. She said, it is so difficult. Many know we're in that fog enshrouded car heading toward disaster, and some even know how to fix the brakes. But many are of the show must go on mentality, because to repair the world will, as T.S. Eliot says, require a condition of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything. I love that quote. That's exactly right. Yeah. But this idea of fixing the brakes, coming back to the Sorrowful Mysteries and what Perdita just said, this is the perfect way to think about it. There are people who believe that the way forward through climate catastrophe, for instance, is to just throw all of these, throw on the brakes, right? Basically just introduce all kinds of legislation, all kinds of new, energy saving, quote, sustainable products and so forth and so on. And the momentum of human culture and human progress is such that this is impossible. It will not happen. Our Lady has been clear that it will not happen.
But look at what has just happened in the past 3 months.
Yeah.
She grounded the airplanes. She got the cars off the road. She got us to sit still for 5 minutes. Yeah. And what happened? The birds came back. The air pollution dropped. The fish started reappearing. She's offered us information about this mystery at this moment. The question is, what happens in the Sorrowful Mysteries is inexorable. It looks like Jesus is going to stop, but nobody does anything. Everybody lets empire continue. And I think I want to go back to what Kate Bellow asked, an interesting question. What she said, what's our take on technology as a solution?
Yeah.
Well, communication. Look, I'm grateful. Here we are on live video talking to you all. And we've been on doing these Zoom meetings. It's been fantastic. But we all know that communication in our own communities has collapsed, that communication in our own families has collapsed. Even more deeply, more profoundly, communication with the natural world has completely and utterly collapsed. Do we know the language of birds? Do we know the language of plants? Do we know the language of soil and mushroom and fungi?
Right.
Because we no longer, we are not communicating.
I mean, I think, have made the best use that you can make of social media on Way of the Rose. But I think it's important to realize what we're doing on Way of the Rose in terms of social media. We're really creating a people. Our Lady has said before, she says, I don't come to a person, I come to a people. Right? She may speak to a person, but it's only for the sake of a people.
And whatever is coming, and she's promised us a lot is coming, there's one way through. She once was very clear with us. She said, there's only one go bag that works. And I love that all these preppers who had these go bags, the two things they did not have in their go bags were bleach wipes and face masks, right? Nobody knows how to prepare. We don't know what's coming, but Our Lady does. And she says you need one thing, and that's this.
Yep.
She said,
that's your go bag, she said.
She said, that's your go bag. Hold on to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you read the stories, they're very inspiring of, for instance, the apparitionist at Kabeho in Rwanda.
Right.
Our Lady was saying for 7 years, look, rivers of blood are about to flow.
Right.
Pray the rosary.
Right. And in fact, the only way, you think about it, I think there were 7 girls, but it could have been 6, but there were these girls basically trapped in this room. A neighbor was brave enough to basically wall them behind, to seal them up behind a wall that was actually a bathroom, but to make it look like a wall. And they hid in there for months.
Praying the rosary all day.
All they could do was pray the rosary. There was nothing there. He slid food to them under the door, and they had a bathroom in there. That was it. They had water. That was it. They survived because they could pray the rosary.
And I think about my grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren and my 7 generations from now descendants. And what do I want? I want them to know how to hold on to the Lady.
Yeah.
I want them to know how to listen to her and listen to their hearts and not listen to empire. Because those soldiers on the side of the road, they break my heart.
Yeah.
Who are they, these young guys? They're probably poor guys. They've been enlisted. They're far from their own mothers. They're far from their own family. And they're being enlisted to wreak out horrific violence. And how many of our young men have this happen to them?
Yeah. Someone said, Maureen said, replying to Connor, she said, it inherently impossible to sustain. Not sure why it's even considered desirable. Yeah, what are we sustaining? What are we persisting in? We talk about sustainability. We're talking about sustaining a level of human population on a planet that was never, ever intended to have so many human beings. Levels of consumption that were never, from the very beginning.
And has it made us happier? Has it given us more joy?
That's the thing. Our Lady says,
are we more joyful?
She says, is it okay to destroy the things you seem to love but secretly hate? And she says, yes. In fact, it may be necessary to do so. I don't think she's not recommending any kind of violence. By destroy, she just means, I think nowadays it's beginning to look like she just means stand to the side and let it fall.
Yeah.
Step to the side and let it collapse. Because the collapse of civilization is not the same thing as the collapse of the species or the collapse of culture. I mean, real culture.
And we don't know.
Human culture.
When Connor says the military are looking at these poor kids, I mean, that's the tragedy I see there, is it's not just Jesus, it's every prisoner, and it's the prison guards, and it's the soldiers, and it's the onlookers, and it's the spectacle of
the road is what it is. Like that Cormac McCarthy.
It's
novel.
the road.
It's the road. Jesus is stuck on that road. He wants to get off of it. He can't get off of it. Even in their deepest hearts, the soldiers want off of it.
The
onlookers want off of it. Everybody at their deepest human level wants off of that road, and they can't imagine how to do it.
And one of the things that's really beautiful, I'm going to give away the secret here for those who are my daughter's book. My daughter writes the crucifixion.
She does.
As a tragedy.
Yeah.
Not a sacrifice, not a noble sacrifice, not God dying for our sins, but as a mistake. Yeah. And a clusterfuck, a complete and total accident a nightmare. And that's what it is. And to treat it pornographically like a good thing, this isn't a good thing. This is all wrong. The whole city is wrong.
Yeah.
The only solution is to leave the city. And that's where the goodness comes in.
Right.
How do we leave the city?
Now, Penny Harrison says something that I've thought a lot about, and I'm sure a lot of us have. But here we are using technology that is probably destructive to achieve something good. I cannot seem to reconcile those concepts. Well, here's the thing. You ultimately won't have to reconcile them because this won't last. And there's no way to sustain it. You know, the rare earth metals that go into keeping the internet up. These things are limited resources and they won't last. So we have to use the time that we have in order to come together and form a kind of a critical mass as a people and to remember all that we've lost. Our Lady is there to show us how to do that and to hold our hands and to lead us toward that deep remembering. And then we'll know how to live in a world where we won't have these things and where we won't really need them. And we'll know how to be a people again.
And there are these two women. You know, I don't know which one is Our Lady, Mary Magdalene or Jesus's mother, but there are two women called Miriam there. And there's probably a third woman called Miriam there, who we see in Veronica. Sometimes she's Mary Salome. Yeah. Here they are. They're in a colonized, they're at the bottom of the feeding. You know, they have no power.
Yeah.
And yet they should have all the power. This is what's wrong. They should be having all the power. And that's what we're trying to resurrect. That is what we're trying to bring back to life. Clark's laughing because Amy Johnson thinks it's a big deal that I swore on the video. And the thing is, I have to.
Got a mouth like a sailor.
I do. I'm an Irish fishwife, and I try to be a good girl and not swear. But I really
You do a really good job most of the time. I think it's the first time I've heard you swear on a live video.
But this mystery makes me so angry.
Yeah.
And it makes me angry because it's every prisoner I see.
Yeah.
This is this road to Calvary. It's the grotesque violence of empire. Yeah. And it's, yes, you're right. I who is it talked about, you know, we're using this horrible technology.
Yeah.
The part of it is, I can't solve good and bad. Human beings have tried to figure out good and bad for a long time, and we don't seem to be very, very good at it. The person who's got a better idea of the long story is Our Lady. She tells us that there's one thing that matters, not good or bad, but joy. We need to get back inside of the joy.
I'm not certain, and I don't have any crystal ball, and I don't know for certain, but I'm not sure that the end of all this social media isn't going to be that human beings cohere in smaller, more meaningful, more cohesive groups. I don't really see social media leading to sort of one world order or universal peace or anything like that. If anything, we've seen that it tends to fragment societies.
And I think as well, you know, I think we have to we're talking about big time here. We're not talking about our current political situation very much. I mean, our current political situation is empire is always, always going to fall. Yeah. Empire is always going to create violence. Yeah. And the question is, can we reform empire or do we have to walk away from it?
Right.
And do we stay on the road? If we stay on the road of empire, there's only one place it goes.
Well, if you stay if you stay in the car, you go over the cliff. That is the simple truth of it.
How do we get out of the car?
If you're committed to that you know, long, straight, narrow highway, then there's no way but down. And the Rosary offers us a different way of thinking, and we take in that knowledge literally through our lips, our hearts, our minds, and even our fingers, where we go in these circles. And these three circles all sort of intersect with one another and form a mirror of the cycle of the seasons.
But I sometimes imagine that my great-great-grandchildren will pray the Rosary, and for them, the sorrowful mysteries will simply be the mysteries of sickness, old age, and death. That's it. They won't be the mysteries of violence of empire. They won't be torture and murder and execution. They'll just be sickness, old age, and death.
Which I think is what they were, and for our
Yeah.
species for millions of years, as long as we've been walking upright and making fires and living together with one another, telling stories.
But when we take the rosary in our hands, we can choose not to pray the mysteries. We can choose not to pray the sorrowful mysteries. But then we don't stand with our mother at the side of the road.
Yeah.
Then we abandon her there.
Yeah.
And if you want to stand at her side, you have to bear witness to this scene.
And, we have to be willing to, if we're not willing to experience sorrow, then we're not willing to acknowledge the sorrows of others. And,
Exactly.
There's a tremendous cruelty in that. So it's really important to be willing to feel sorrow, to experience sorrow, to recognize the sorrows and sufferings of other people.
And to see the sorrows of all those around us and to bear witness to them.
And the sorrows of the planet.
And the thing of all of our animals that are being crucified right now, the species, the plants, the animals, all every day wiped off the face of the earth. Can we bear witness?
30 minutes.
We're at the end.
We're at the end.
All right. Fun times next week. We're doing the crucifixion. But I don't think this. I don't think
we have a slightly different way of looking at the crucifixion than what.
But tell people not to be frightened of the mysteries, and don't be frightened of the sorrowful mysteries. We dampen our joy if we do not feel our sorrows, says Connor, and that's where I'm going to end, because it's
Very
true.
beautiful. Yeah.
Because we don't risk love, and Our Lady risks love, and love brings us into sorrow.
And brings us to glory.
And glory too.
It's a long path, and it leads in a circle. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Rosary Zoom meeting tonight at 8:00 for anyone who's interested.
See you there.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.